Super Smash Bros. Is, well, an interesting series for Nintendo. While the first one sold some copies on the Nintendo 64 and was kind of a mediocre fighting game with a bunch of random Nintendo characters in it, the second one was not only a hit, becoming the best-selling game on the GameCube, but also ended up gaining a competitive scene and also becoming the only Nintendo game to actually gain a true competitive scene. Unlike Pokemon's tournaments, which are only hosted by Nintendo, intended as an advertisement for Pokemon's games, similar to how you see trading card game tournaments with rules such as new decks only, Smash Bros. Melee gained popularity in groups such as MLG and EVO, which host real Melee tournaments for real money. What also helped Melee was that it had button glitches and techniques such as wave dashing and L canceling. Advanced players could use these to their advantage, similar to how people playing Halo 2 or Halo 1 knew tons of glitches such as double melee, BXR, backpack reloading, and various others, while Call of Duty had the infamous quickscoping technique, while Quake-based games had bunny hopping and rocket jumping, with Team Fortress 2 and Counter-Strike being good examples of games that use these techniques that people actually know, along with the Quake series, of course. Brawl, however, for much of its life, did not enjoy the same success. The game also had an extremely controversial focus on casuals, with advanced techniques being removed or practically watered down, despite adding new stages and characters. However, thanks to an accidental game-save exploit in Brawl, similar to how the original Xbox had the whole Mechasol exploit and the Splinter Cell exploit, fans created a mod called Project M, which was designed to combine the best of Brawl and Melee in one game with faster Melee-style gameplay. The mod was a success, racking up hundreds of thousands of downloads and becoming a fixture at tournaments alongside Melee, practically destroying what Brawl had left of its competitive scene. Nintendo also really loves it. In fact, you can see how much they enjoy it by actually going on Miiverse and mentioning Project M. Please try it. At around the same time as Project M was getting popular, Nintendo was developing this new Smash Bros. Game, Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS and Wii U. Yes, that is the actual title of this game, but many people just call this game Super Smash Bros. 4. The game had ridiculous hype, much of which centered around which character would be in it, to the point where you wondered, where did all the talk about how Nintendo was the savior of gameplay fighting against those evil graphics whores such as Microsoft and Sony go? I mean, nearly all the marketing centered around this character will be in Smash Bros., and the hype generated itself. After all, as the hype around the game and reaction showed, it didn't matter if the game was good, they were still going to buy it. And so far, the game has sold 2.8 million copies. As for if the game is good, well, I'm going to answer that question today by reviewing the 3DS version. Now, you might be wondering, why the 3DS? Well, keep in mind, I'm recording this video today in October 2014. As of now, Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U is coming in November. The 3DS version, however, is already out. Considering how Nintendo games seem to become irrelevant the next time one gets hyped or comes out, I might as well talk about it while it's still relevant. After all, it's been only a week or two since Hyrule Warriors came out, and none of the people I know who are obsessed with Nintendo or who were talking about it are even talking about it now because Smash Bros. 4 is out on the 3DS. Or look at Pokemon, which seems to be the Call of Duty of Japanese role-playing games besides Neptunia. Anyways, let's start the review, shall we? Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS is a fighting game from Nintendo. Ever since Melee, the premise and gameplay have been similar. Take a bunch of Nintendo game characters and a handful from non-Nintendo games and throw them in a fighting game. Melee normally featured fast, chaotic gameplay with tons of items available on a 2D plane with dynamic 3D stages and 4 players in a ring. Unlike other fighting games, the default settings would put you in one of these 3D stages, which were open compared to the tiny screen-sized areas of many conventional fighting games, with some stages actually requiring you to progress forward or die. Health was measured in you racking up a percent meter, and the higher it was, the more likely you were to go flying from a simple attack or get knocked out and have to respawn. You could also pick up items similar to beat 'em up games and throw them at the enemies or use them to attack. Despite all this, you could change tons of settings, from if matches are determined by lives or by time, to even more obscure options such as a stamina battle, which used hit points instead of percentages, or coin battles where you had to collect coins in a battle to win, similar to the Digimon Battle Spirit games. It was one of those games that hit the sweet spot when making a multiplayer game. Easy for casuals to get into, but not watered down for those with some sense of skill. Gameplay only required 2 buttons, with a third for jumping. There was also a dedicated block button on the trigger similar to Virtua Fighter and Sonic the Fighters. Despite this, Melee had tons of button glitches, from L canceling to wave dashing. Stuff like this helped Melee not only a popular party game, but also big at various game tournaments such as MLG. Clones of Melee were commonplace, most notably PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, but also Digimon Rumble Arena, Battle Stadium Dawn, the Jump Star series, Small Arms, and various others that are even more obscure. None of these, however, besides PlayStation All-Stars, even gained an ounce of popularity or notability. Of course, one of the major problems with Brawl, like I mentioned earlier, was that the game had a very strong focus on casuals. Since Smash Bros. For the 3DS has received the most hype since Titanfall, Watch Dogs, and Aliens Colonial Marines, many people were hoping the game would actually be good, and not just an advertisement for more video games from Nintendo. Sadly, the makers of this game continued on the same route Brawl took, but with a twist. This time, Smash Bros. For the 3DS suffered from a problem many modern-day games have faced, called platform parity. Now, what is that, you may ask? Well, it's when a game is watered down on all consoles, so it can be the same on them all. This has generated tons of controversy, for example, with games that are watered down for next gen, just so they could run the same on last gen as they do next gen, such as, let's just say, Destiny or Watch Dogs, with Watch Dogs especially gaining tons of criticism due to the fact that it was on the PC as well, and we all know how many PC gamers are when they see a game that is hyped up as being next-gen, but ends up under-delivering and being a console port. Or even if it's something minor like 2 different next-gen systems, there will be a giant controversial flame war, because apparently 2 similar systems are as different as last gen and next gen in the world of console warriors. Now, with all that controversy over something little power-wise, it's pretty funny how with the 3DS Smash Bros., nobody is complaining about how the Wii U version is being held back in this climate, especially when it's an even greater difference than a 2013 console on an old, dated design from 2005. And keep in mind, despite the Wii U being vastly more powerful than the 3DS, some characters are missing in both since they would not work on the 3DS. For example, Ice Climbers. They were cut from Smash Bros. On both systems due to 3DS limitations. Even though they worked on the 3DS version, even though adding exclusive stuff to the Wii U version would help improve sales of the floundering console, they just had to take it out of both for the sole sake of platform parity. This is an even bigger difference than just resolution and frame rate. And yet, look at this. Nobody is complaining about it. The same thing happened with Zelda and Sheik. They had to become separate characters because the 3DS couldn't handle transforming characters, something a GameCube could handle back in 2001. Now, it probably could have been done on the Wii U, but platform parity. The same with Samus and Zero Suit Samus. On an original 3DS, the game has some unique issues as well. The Circle Pad Pro is not supported due to allegedly having to use more processor power. The system's menu acts extremely slow, and access to the Miiverse and the web browser is disabled while you're playing the game. Seriously. But on the new 3DS, it works just fine, along with the fact that that extremely tiny C stick works on the new 3DS as well with this video game. And if you back out of Smash 4 from the 3DS menu, instead of just quitting it like it normally would, it actually reboots the system. I mean, I've never seen a 360 game that has to literally reboot the console just to back out, so why does this 3DS game do it? That's all I really have to say. And of course the menu slows to a crawl as well. Gameplay-wise, the game feels barren as well, due to being watered down for the 3DS. Items are no longer as unique or as common as they were on Melee or even Brawl. This gives the game a more generic feel, as it feels less like the trademark game it once was, especially if you are going to be playing the game with friends. Many gameplay options such as coin or stamina battles are no longer in the game. In an era where you have games such as Halo Reach or Call of Duty trying to cram as many modes into them as possible. For example, how Call of Duty Black Ops 2 had what? You know, let's just say it had stuff such as Hardpoint or Multi-Team. I mean, even if many people didn't play them, it had them in the game. One of my worst problems with the game, though, is that the game controls terribly, with the 3DS's circle pad and cramped button layout not being a suitable fit for Smash Bros. The circle pad feels a little slippery when you control it, and broken circle pads are commonplace due to how the game requires you to play it, especially when you mash the stick around. And while the GameCube controller has the advantage of letting you feel which button you are hitting in Smash, along with being more ergonomic as well, with other controllers such as the PS2 or Xbox controller having similar advantages, the 3DS on the other hand feels like you're holding a cramped slab, which is annoying to play on. And it's also pretty small instead of being bigger like, let's just say, the Vita or a real game controller. This is made worse by the fact that there is no option whatsoever to connect a wireless controller such as a Wii U Pro controller to the console, and keep in mind the PSP Go, Android, and Windows tablets can do this out of the box with DualShock 3s. And while you can change some control settings, it still does not make the controls magically workable. The changes to the physics, such as nerfing the ledges and the general floatiness inherited from Brawl, help make the gameplay even worse. Wave dashing and L cancelling do not return whatsoever from Melee, despite fan-made mods adding them back to Brawl, and well, causing Brawl to get played at tournaments for once. A player who knows these techniques will find himself unable to pull them off, and no longer having an advantage over other players based on skill. Oh wait, does this sound familiar? Yes, because that's just what happened to Mario Kart as well. The game got casualized. For that kid, well, let's just say the Nintendo version of that kid on Black Ops 2 who said, "Take the sentry gun out of the game, Treyarch," or pretty much take every single weapon out of the game, Treyarch, despite the game having a counter against it. Final Smashes do return though, so people like Little Phil can have a chance at winning a Smash for 3DS match. The single player modes are an absolute joke. Once you manage to try to get some sense of control out of the sloppy 3DS circle pad, you find out the 3DS controlled opponents are an absolute joke. Why? Well, there is a reason they start at level 3. They are extremely easy to defeat. And the subspace and missionary is gone. Why? Apparently the cutscenes were getting leaked online. Last time I checked though, BioShock didn't remove the story mode because someone posted the ending and plot twist online, and that game had a far better story than Smash Bros. Ever did. However, there is a variant of the old single player mode you found in every other Smash Bros. Game where you just fight random enemies in a row before finding the final boss, now with the ability to choose your path. Oh, and the game doesn't even have Melee's adventure mode either. Something to note. Similar to Kid Icarus Uprising, in Classic mode, you actually need to use in-game coins to actually boost the difficulty. Keep in mind, this isn't Farmville, this is Smash Brothers. If I wanted in-game currency, I'd go play Candy Crush. I wouldn't play Smash Brothers. If the same thing happened with Halo or something like that, there would be complaints everywhere on the official game forums for that game. Multiplayer on the other hand? Well, since this is about the 3DS version, let me start off by saying this game does not support download play. If you have friends over, unless you own 9 3DSs and 9 copies of the game, you will be forced to play single player only, even if they have a 3DS too. Unless, of course, they own the game as well. So keep in mind, you have to have one 3DS and a copy per a player. So if you want to do multiplayer split screen, I'd suggest you go by the Wii U version instead of the 3DS version. So due to this, a lot of the focus is online. And keep in mind, during a Nintendo Direct, they actually said to buy a Wii Ethernet adapter to play online for the best experience. Now, keep in mind this is going to lead into what I'm saying next. The problem with the online is that it's straight up garbage in this game. The game uses what is called lockstep netcode, especially on many gaming websites. Now, you might be wondering, what is lockstep netcode? You might not have heard that term before. Well, let me explain. It's a type of netcode which syncs everything in the game, even if a person is lagging in a peer-to-peer game. For example, Halo 3 from 2007 on the 360 is a great way to notice what lockstep netcode is. First, go into campaign mode and do a co-op game. All you need are a few online friends with copies of this game, and you'll notice that it makes lag extremely noticeable. For example, if one person is lagging, the game will lag for everybody in the game. And not only that, but if something happens like a player drops, the match will end due to this. For example, if somebody lags out from everybody else in the lobby, boom, the game ends for everybody and they're back in the lobby. Then go to multiplayer, and it uses different netcode, which allows you to notice how lag is masked. And if one person lags, the whole game doesn't lag. If one person lags, the whole game doesn't freeze. And if one person disconnects, it will actually move the host to another person in the game, as the game features host migration. Sure, Halo 3 didn't have the best netcode, but it's still miles better than the netcode used for the campaign, or the lockstep netcode. You can also see a similar effect with lag if you try to land tunnel something such as Halo 1 or Mario Kart Double Dash, as the games were never intended for online play, so they were efficient with regards to bandwidth and ping, with the former doing something similar with what I'm going to explain next. And I mentioned they also had huge packets as well. Now keep in mind, Super Smash Bros. Brawl also used similar netcode and was also notoriously laggy. Games were known for running extremely slowly, all to compensate for one laggy player. Now you might have thought they would have learned with Smash Bros. For 3DS, but they obviously didn't, and instead decided to go with the same old netcode you saw in games such as Brawl. Remember how laggy Brawl was? Because the lag continues with Smash Bros. For 3DS, but even worse. You cannot back out of a game whatsoever, so matches are not only still slow and laggy with bare bones online lacking voice chat and messaging, but also with punishment for quitting a game. Quitting a game will actually ban you for a short period of time, all because you wanted to get into a less laggy lobby. As a side effect of the lockstep netcode, this also causes the whole game to disconnect when one person quits. It makes the game a dream for some 12-year-old with the host booting tool he got off a hacking forum, as all you need to do is you just have to boot one person and the whole game will lag out or disconnect. Can people leave though? Nope, because Nintendo will ban them. This attempt at trying to make the online better only made it even worse. Certain other behaviors might also get you banned, as recent false positives such as people getting banned for using Peach showed. Graphically, the game is exactly what you'd expect. It looks very similar to Melee graphic-wise, since every Smash Bros. Game since that game has looked the same. However, this is the handheld version, so it's pretty much what you'd expect for a 2011 handheld, despite said 2011 handheld being so underpowered that only 3 years into its life cycle they're having to make a boosted model, which still can't touch an Android phone or tablet power-wise, especially as these devices catch up and end up being able to run console and PC games. The game runs at mostly 60 frames a second, with some more complex attacks causing frame rate drops. However, by default there is a weird black border around the characters which can be disabled. Disabling it, however, reveals another graphical flaw. The game lacks anti-aliasing, especially on the XL. A trained eye can see this, which is why the black border exists to try to mask the lack of it. The music is what you would expect. Random video game songs remixed. At least it has that, I guess. But hey, considering you can probably buy the soundtrack on eBay or Amazon, or get it some other method such as a digital release if it has one on iTunes or Amazon MP3, there's no reason to spend $40 to listen to some video game song in your car, probably like, let's just say, a Honda Civic, on your drive to your local community college or your McDonald's job. The character roster in Smash Bros. For the 3DS can be described as hit and miss. The developers stepped back a little with their no-cloned character design philosophy used in Brawl, and added a few clones, Dark Pit and Lucina, with other characters reeking of clone. As for the characters themselves, though, I'm reviewing Smash Bros. For 3DS as a video game, and not as a Mugen character pack, so I kept this for last. Most of the characters you expected are here, in fact. However, some had to be removed, such as Ice Climbers, due to the fact that the 3DS couldn't handle it, and because, you know, platform parity. Despite the whole marketing based off insert character here is in the game, many character choices seem bizarre. For example, fan-requested characters such as Mewtwo and Ridley are absent, along with various third-party characters some people were hoping to see in the game, such as Rayman, Klonoa, and various others. However, we all know you pre-ordered the game to play as some characters such as the Wii Fit Trainer, or some random person from Kid Icarus, or some random person from Xenoblade, that game that people were talking about buying despite the fact that literally only one store carried it, or the Duck Hunt dog. I don't know, but hey, we all know that that's why you bought Smash 4, right? Did I mention many characters seem unbalanced, the stages are generic, and the game just overall feels a bit off in the end? It gives me that bad feeling. That feeling you bought an overhyped game that was advertised to be the best thing ever, and it just didn't deliver. My conclusion on this game is that this game is an absolute joke, especially on the 3DS. The controls are garbage, the gameplay feels off, and so do the characters. And the online is still trashy, with lockstep netcode holding the game down and introducing tons of problems. The worst part, however, is that the game focuses on casuals. This is the same thing that is killing every Nintendo franchise that used to be good. And especially, they're changing it so that instead of focusing on gamers, they're focusing on people who play Candy Crush. Along with other classics of casual gaming such as Wii Sports, Farmville, and Angry Birds. Even if you absolutely have to play a Mugen character pack, I'd wait about a month for the Wii U version to come out, which I'll be renting and making a video on when it's out. Either way, I'd pass on the 3DS version. If you really want a Smash Bros. Game, go get Melee somehow. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more, and please, there are much better fighting games than Smash 4 or Smash for 3DS. Because this game is straight up garbage. It really is. That's all I can say about this game. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more.